factory, they had a very small turbocharger, no intercooler, so when the turbo gets hot, hey, Mad Matt Budget Boosting here. We're going to talk about changing brake pads. For disc brakes, just changing the brake pads out. It saves you a lot of money because a lot of shops will charge you quite a bit for a little simple job like brakes, as long as it's nothing really extensive. Since you got your wheel off, that's the first step. Have your book if you need to know real specifics about the brakes, but this one's pretty straightforward. You got your disc brake rotor. You want to inspect that while it's off. Look like you got plenty of rotor. You don't have any cracks. Minor, you know, kind of looks like a record. That's fine. That's acceptable. A lot of people use this opportunity to take off your caliper, take your rotors in to turn them or whatnot, but if they're in good shape, you don't have to turn them because the new brake pads are going to run into them and wear into them. So basically, once the brake and the rotor get introduced together for an amount of miles or some brake pressing, they're going to seed into each other and brake really good. Here's a new brake pad. Where is our old ones? I want to show them what an old one looks like. Here's a nice new pad. We've already done the other side of the car, so I'm going to show you the difference. Here's the brake pad that used to be on the other side of the car. New, old, really worn, almost metal to metal. Once you run out of pad, you're going to go metal to metal and destroy your rotors. That's when you have to replace your rotors. Have to, because they'll be metal to metal scoring. But if this had smooth wear, it's just worn all the way down. These new pads are going to seat in just fine and give you some nice stopping power. Alright, now I got the wheel off. Lubricated the retaining bolts that hold half the caliper on. Because there's a few different ways to attack this, but I believe in doing it with the least amount of pain possible. Sometimes the book's going to tell you, take this off, take this off, take this off, take the whole caliper off. I say, I'm going to do it the easiest way possible. I'm just going to remove half the caliper, set it to the side, put a C-clamp in, compress the cylinder so I can fit the new brake pads in. You can see how fat these are together? See? Big difference in size. That's how much I have to compress the cylinder to accept these new pads. So I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to take off the caliper. Sometimes they can be tight, but I have a double wrench method for that. Sometimes they are very tight. Double wrench method gives you more mechanical advantage to remove stubborn stuff like that. Most people say pull, don't push on a wrench, but in this position, I don't have a lot of space. Do what you gotta do. Loosen the retaining bolts with a ratchet. Since that's a lot easier than going stroke for stroke with a box-in wrench. Of course, air tools are always easier if you have them around. Power wrenches, but you cannot get your power wrench in here most of the time. Space constricted. Get these guys out. Retaining pins that hold the two halves of the caliper together. We're just going to remove out the cylinder portion of the caliper. Remember, each automobile is different, so consult your manual first to determine how far you have to tear apart your brakes before you actually go and attack the job. Because you want to make sure you have all the tools you need before you start. So now I work the cylinder part of the caliper off. Kind of fun. Sometimes they want to be fun. Okay, little help from a tool. Next, we compress this piston in so it'll accept, see, because the piston is out because of the thin pads and it has to fit on the rotor. So we have to push the piston all the way in so it can accept the new pads. I like to use a socket because you don't have to adjust your C-clamp as much. Put the C-clamp on the base of the caliper and turn it in, and slowly watch the cylinder be pressed in. Mind you, keep an eye on your master cylinder reservoir, because if your master cylinder is already over full, it'll start spewing fluid everywhere. So you want to make sure you didn't top off your master cylinder before you start this procedure, because the fluid level will go up. So always top off your brake fluid when you're all done with this entire evolution, front and rear brakes if need be. In goes the piston. Nice and easy. Back off the C-clamp. Next, set the caliper to the side and out of the way. And one by one, replace the pads. They got two kinds of pads they show in this kit. You got one with a shim. One with a shim and a wear indicator tab. See the difference? Indicator tab, no indicator tab. So what I always like to do is use the old pad for reference, because apparently worn down this good. Now here's the indicator tab. Indicator tab. New one with indicator tab. So that will go on this side. And in it slides right between those little clips there. And you check your play, good and tight. Next one, that one just has a shim. This one just has a shim. Nice and easy does it. In the space, good and firm. And now we put our caliper back, or our cylinder part of our caliper back on. See, since the cylinder's pushed in, fits right on. Move these little rubber things to get this into position to be bolted in. It's always good to lubricate your pins, which I did. I lubricated them. In with the bolts. Do a little bit at a time. Do a few turns here, a few turns there, just so you evenly seat your caliper cylinder. Alright, I just finished torquing down the caliper, checked it, had my assistant pump the brake pedal a couple times to let the fluid go back into the caliper once it's tight, and push on the disc brake rotor just so it evenly seats the cylinder for its initial compression. And to look at how bad these pads are, both these sets of pads, this is the left, this is the right, both of these pads are as thick together as one new pad. So it was time for these guys to get changed. Hope you learned something on changing disc brake pads. This is a Pontiac Bonneville. There's all kinds of cars out there and each pad is uniquely different. But this is just the basics, and this shows you it can be done. And this is a front-wheel drive car, usually pretty hard to work on a lot of areas, but the brakes are pretty easy and straightforward. So hey, remember, if you like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube, and check out our budgetboosting.com website for every video we do. And remember, knowledge is power. It's horsepower. Because when you first start up, you're going to just turn the engine over to get oil pressure throughout all your engine parts. You're not going to immediately fire the engine over because that might be too many RPMs for an engine to be starved of oil. What I did was when I was putting all my parts on my engine, I was pouring oil all over the crank, all over the push rods, all over the lifters, to pre-fill everything all over my rocker arms, to pre-lubricate my entire engine with this oil. And then another good thing is to just crank the engine over for about 20-30 seconds, a few 20-30 second bursts, to get all the oil circulating through the engine before it actually fires.